What up, fight world? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Back with my post-fight for the Dominic Breazeale Anthony Joshua title defense. First, congrats to AJ, who won via 7th round knockout, and also to Dominic Breazeale. He showed mad heart in this fight. As you guys know, in my post-fights, I give you guys the good, the bad, and the ugly. Let's get into it. So, the good is Anthony Joshua won. I had him winning pretty much a shutout. I didn't really give Dominic Breazeale much in terms of the rounds or whatnot, but he was clearly game. And I don't mind watching fights like this because it shows me a lot, and I try my best to put things in perspective. And the fact of the matter is, yes, AJ has a gold medal, but he's still learning on the job, right? He's not like a Lomachenko where he's in a division like 126, 130 pounds, and he's this small, nimble dude. He's a big, massive, gargantuan type of muscle-bound, He-Man looking heavyweight. That changes everything when you're in the ring with heavyweights. And as much as I love the sport of boxing, I tried to be realistic. A lot of people were like, oh, this is a bum fight. They hate Heyman, or they hate this fighter and that fighter, so everything's a bum fight. Dominic Breazeale was actually very game, and he actually surprised me because, to me, I seen Dominic Breazeale a couple times on PBC. He was on, I think he was right before Robert Guerrero versus Aaron Martinez, and I seen him a couple other times, like the Amir Mansour fight. And I know Mansour has power, but he's small, so I'm like, damn, if Mansour is hurting him, then AJ can clearly hurt him. But he looked much better in this fight. Well, he wasn't getting knocked down in this fight and stuff like that. So a lot of people were just predicting these, oh, Dominic Breazeale is going to get knocked out in the first round and first 30 seconds, things like that. And he actually impressed me with the amount of heart that he showed, because he made AJ figure out the puzzle a bit more than I think a lot of people thought. So round one, clearly an AJ round. He was busier, he was cool, calm, and collect, which I like. He landed some good combos. Breazeale needs to land something and note. That was my thing. Now, I think Breazeale, he didn't do himself any favors. The bad is he could have made this, I'm not saying he could have beat Anthony Joshua, but he could have made it more interesting and less one-sided, because this is another thing. When you're realistic with boxing, you have to take into consideration all the variables. The training camps, did they overtrain? Is there a height disparity, an age gap? I mean, you got to look at everything. How long have they been a pro? Who have they beat? What kind of experience they have? And seeing Anthony Joshua in against another undefeated guy who was bigger and taller than him, and at least went into the fight, whether they could back up what they said or not, but they went in confident. Dominic Breazeale was like, when you're on the canvas, you better get back up. Don't disappoint your country. So he clearly went in, even though he wasn't able to back it up, he clearly went in with the level of confidence of an undefeated fighter and a guy who's been to the Olympics. So you have to factor in that. That's why no one, again, if you know boxing, you think of the different stuff, you probably would not necessarily say it's going to be easy work first round knockout, or like look like Charles Martin. Charles Martin looked bewildered in there with Anthony Joshua, and to a degree Dominic Breazeale did too, but it was different because he was fighting back in spots. He just wasn't really taking a stand. So I noticed in the first round Joshua was trying to land that big right hand, and he was barely just missing. The thing I noticed is he kind of, like, after he poses with it, he's posing for the camera, he needs to get that right back. If you missed it, you missed it. But a guy who's a good counterpuncher that's a heavyweight, like a Luis King Kong Ortiz, especially since he has that type of power, you don't want to be posing after you miss, after they make you whiff. So there's things he can, to me, Anthony Joshua was a beast, but there's things he needs to work on that I've noticed. It's good to see him put it all together. I thought when he fought Dillian White, he looked very Frank Bruno-ish, very stiff. I don't know if it was because the emotions were riding high because they had such a bad blood and trash talk, and he lost in the amateurs to Dillian White. But whatever the situation is, he looked real stiff. His last two fights versus Martin, and then also in this fight versus Dominic Breazeale, he looked a bit looser. And it's interesting. Let's keep going through my round by round tweets. AJ needs to continue jabbing to set up the combos against the slightly taller fighter. I think he has a very powerful jab. He needs to be consistent with that. You know what I mean? And this is important for a guy with the type of power Anthony Joshua has, especially as he starts fighting the Tyson Furies, the Klitschko's, the Wilders, guys with good level, pro level experience, especially since most of those guys I just named have power. So Breazeale was badly hurt in round 2, but he didn't go down, showed heart. Referee got in the way of the action for no reason and broke up the action. Breazeale showed heart. See, I don't understand why the ref, I think that was the same ref that stopped the George Groves Carl Froch first fight. I don't understand. It looked like he might get, Breazeale was going to get knocked down or something, and then the ref split up the action for no reason. I thought that was stupid. So that's part of the ugly. Breazeale fought smarter by trying to clinch and regain his senses, which is important. That shows you the level of amateur experience and the Olympic experience. When he was hurt, he clinched. Some people say, oh, that's a coward move or some stupid shit, but you get in there and get melted by hammers from a big puncher and see if you don't clinch. Either that or get knocked out immediately. Breazeale's eyes started closing, which is a sign of Joshua's power seems to be legit. And this is one of the tweets I want to focus on. Will be interesting to see if the young power puncher, meaning Anthony Joshua, if he can remain patient with all that power, see if he cannot get discouraged. What I was trying to say in that tweet, you only have 140 characters, is when you have the type of power of a guy like Anthony Joshua, it is very important to not get overly excited when you get your man hurt, because some guys are tough, especially as you step up in competition. Fighters like Ruslan Provodnikov, this would apply to him. What I'm trying to say is, yes, he has the power to hurt you, but you have to keep in mind when you hurt somebody, your adrenaline is going. You know what I mean? Your heart is racing because they know they're hurt and they're in bad shape, and unless they're just completely discombobulated where they're like concussed or knocked out, they realize they're in danger. So that's gonna raise people's antennas. So you're like looking for shots, and nobody wants to get knocked out brutally on TV. And guys like Ruslan Provodnikov, watch the Chris Algieri fight. He had him badly rocked and hurt, and his eye was closing in the first round, and then he started searching for a knockout. So it's important for a young fighter with less experience, this was his 17th fight, to remain patient and calm and not get discouraged if you're in there with someone who can take your shots for a few more rounds and systematically keep breaking them down, and don't let it mentally break you down because you got hurt and like, oh, they're off the hook. You know what I mean? Some people gas out and punch themselves out. They do like Ruslan Provodnikov versus Algieri, and then they're like searching, like, oh, I had him hurt that bad, and then they kind of let off the gas and they can never find the person again and they recover. So that's part of what's important for this path to me for AJ, is as he gains more experience, if he can do stuff like this, because you don't want to punch yourself out with these 250 plus pound heavyweights and have nothing in the tank in the late rounds, especially when you start fighting the Wilders and the Klitschko's and the Luis King Kong Ortiz, people who can punch. And that's what I was saying. If Breazeale hangs around for more rounds, which he did do, AJ needs to remain calm, not punch himself out. And this is another important thing based on the physique. I'm just gonna give you guys a little boxing FYI. Look at Mike Tyson. He was big, he was buff, but it was like he wasn't always as like super defined and vascular as a guy like AJ. So I said what's interesting to me is muscles take up more oxygen. AJ is very busy. He was definitely winning all the rounds, controlling the pace. So it's a good fight to see if he figures out the puzzle or if he fatigues, gets frustrated because this guy won't go down because he hadn't been knocked down up to that point. And get frustrated by a guy like Breazeale who just won't go away like others have in his past 16 fights. So I think, to me, this was a good learning fight for Anthony Joshua. You could look at it like, oh, he won every round, but Dominic Breazeale, he showed heart and he was a live dog, because those are all things you have to consider. Is what if Anthony Joshua starts getting frustrated, leaves himself open and doing too much, trying to get a knockout? What if he's punching himself out because he's muscle bound and he's controlling the pace? And then round 5, Breazeale showed signs of life. He had a good succession of punches, not necessarily enough to land and win the round, but he showed a little bit of life. And I said it's the heavyweight division. Halfway through, this is where it gets interesting as the body fatigues. And I was right, because the very next round we got a knockout. And this is funny to me. UK commentary can be so biased for the UK fighters. It's funny. Yes, Joshua is pitching a shutout. The remarks are funny though. It's funny to see like the level of light that they always paint the UK fighters in, and some of the American fighters, they don't. I don't know. It's just funny to me. Like, I've seen Lee Selby versus Eric Hunter or fights like that, and the commentary is just hilarious. This is another thing that I'm talking about. With Joshua's nose now bleeding in round 6, I don't even know how it happened. I guess a punch, again, when you're in there with 250 plus pound men hitting you, anything can happen. Breazeale needs to turn more sharp and use it as leverage. The young fighter may freak out. So what I'm trying to say with what I was trying to say in this tweet is, perfect example. You look at, I said, a la Manny Pacquiao versus Eric Morales 1. When Pacquiao had that cut and started bleeding, he like freaked out. Power punchers don't like to see their own blood when they're used to making others bleed. And that's pretty self-explanatory. And I think Dominic Breazeale, part of the bad for him is he should have tried to capitalize that. Because I know Anthony Joshua, in the fight he was winning, he wasn't expecting to get a nosebleed. When you get a nosebleed and you're fighting, you have to think about it. You're in there with a guy who's taller than you, he weighs more than you, and your nose is now bleeding. And if they start targeting that, then it could become harder to breathe. Things like that for you. So I think Dominic Breazeale could have made it more of an effort to try to wish, but it's probably easier said than done when you're in there with the tank who's just hitting you with solid shots. Then it's kind of hard to get, you know what I mean, get the momentum going and swinging your way. And then finally, the 7th round KO, it just, Dominic Breazeale took too much early punishment, and it just wore him out, and AJ was able to catch up to him at that point, and he landed some, like, his jabs are powerful. I think he needs to keep working on that and keep doing that. But he did that, and he was able to get him up out of there. So I thought it was a good, solid performance by AJ. Still some things he should work on, I guess, to continue his path. But I mean, he got the job done. He won every round, so I can't really complain about his performance. I just think there's things he needs to tighten up, because as he elevates his competition, those are going to be some important things that he wants to do to remain undefeated. But overall, I liked it. The guy is a beast. He clearly takes it serious. I like his demeanor outside the ring when he does interviews. He's very humble, very well spoken. They asked him post-fight about a potential fight with Deontay Wilder. He says Wilder's an inspiration, and he got to 30-0 or whatever Wilder's record is, and he's looking to pave his own path, and he believes they'll meet sometime in the future. So he didn't go overboard and trash talk like some of the people in the comment section that say, oh, AJ, he'll beat Wilder's ass right now, and this fighter will destroy this fighter. So it's funny how the two fighters in question, a lot of times there's a good level of sportsmanship between the two of them, and it's the fans that are doing all the talking. So, you know, classy move from Anthony Joshua. Good, solid, workman-like performance. I think he needs to keep up with the jab, invest to the body, and just feel loose, have fun in there with your opponents. But it's good to me to see a guy like Anthony Joshua have to figure some things out, you know what I mean? Like a guy who's just not going away, you know what I mean? A guy who's just there, and you have to figure it out how you're going to get it done. How are you going to win this particular fight? So let me know what you guys thought of Anthony Joshua. He said he's going to take some time off with family. Looking forward to seeing him back, possibly a Joseph Parker fight, he said, post-fight. Let me know what you guys think of this. Who do you want to see him fight next that's realistic? Obviously, he said it can't be Klitschko Fury 2 because Klitschko and Fury is postponed as Tyson Fury hurt his ankle. Drop that in the comment section. Let me know what you want to see. As always, hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video, it's Ego signing off.